Today's episode is brought to you by the Local Palate Cookbook Club.
Do you know how many cookbooks are coming out this fall? We asked someone who tried to count them all. Welcome to Everything Cookbooks, the podcast for writers, readers, and cooks. This is Kristen Donnelly, and I'm here today with Kate Leahy. Hey, Kate.
Hey, Kristen.
Our guest today is Jenna Helwig. She is the food director of Real Simple, but she also has this great, relatively new newsletter on Substack called Cookbookery Collective, which has been super, super fun for cookbook enthusiasts like all of our listeners.
Right. She started it this March, and it's just really gained traction. I'm seeing it in a lot of places. I'm seeing other people mention it. And it's just really great because she interviews a lot of cookbook authors, but then she also does these deep dives into things that are happening in the cookbook world. And they're the kind of things where it's such a good complement to the kind of conversations we have, because there is so much going on that one podcast or one Substack can't do it all. But between the Cookbookery Collective, podcasts like ours, and also like Maggie Hoffman's, there's just so much to talk about, so much juicy stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
This conversation is all about that.
Yeah, and it's also filling in a little bit of a hole where we're missing Paula Forbes' great newsletter, Stain Page News, right, which she did for a couple of years, where she, much like Jenna, tried to be fairly completist in some of her cookbook roundups. And rather than do my favorite 10 books, really just show the breadth of what's coming out. Jenna did that recently in the early fall. Hopefully she'll do it again.
I know.
But what's fascinating is it sounds like she released it and then kept adding because she still didn't get them all, which is kind of mind-boggling.
It really is. I just wouldn't even know where to start with that, because you would have like the publishers that you see coming out with books all the time. But then there's a lot of publishers that might publish a cookbook here and there, but aren't regular. So I wouldn't even think to look at that imprint.
Right, totally.
But then you're missing like maybe a really big deal book. So it's just really hard to find it all. But I would say, like, if you are a cookbook author who's writing a proposal, use Jenna's list as like maybe you're finding your comparable titles. Like, what are books coming out that might be similar to yours that you can put in your proposal when you're pitching agents. So lots to get into. But like Jenna also, not only does she have lots of magazine background, she's also worked as a private chef. She's written her own cookbooks, so she has experience. She knows what it's like to be in the cookbook writer's seat and knows how hard it is. Yeah, I mean, she's 5 cookbooks. Her most recent was Bare Minimum Dinners, and her best-selling cookbook was newly updated, and that is Baby-Led Feeding. So we will get into all that fun stuff in our conversation.
Well, let's talk to Jenna. Welcome, Jenna, to Everything Cookbooks.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you.
This is kind of funny. The bio on your website says that when you were in your mid-20s, you fell in love with the delicious possibility of food and cooking after spying a recipe for mango salsa in an issue of Cooking Light. And I was chuckling because I had a memory of also falling in love with cooking from mango salsa. My mom made a tequila lime chicken with mango salsa, I think from Cooking Light. And I was working in a restaurant. It was when I was in college. And I was also like, what is this? Ooh. It had cilantro, which I think was like a new flavor for me.
Yeah, I remember I was on an airplane. I had been in Colorado visiting my parents, and I was flying back to New York, and my mom gave me her issue of Cooking Light to read on the plane. And I don't remember exactly what the story was, but I remember this recipe was salmon with mango salsa. Really, my mind was like a little bit blown. I was like, what? Like, I just did not grow up eating that kind of food. I wanted to eat it, and I wanted to be able to make it. And it was actually pretty easy. So thank you, Cooking Light.
I never knew that about you, Kristen, or you, Jenna. So I think that's really kind of fascinating. And we need more mango salsa. Let's bring it back. I haven't seen it around in a while.
I know. I feel like it was passé for a while, but it's delicious.
It really is.
We should just eat it.
Mm-hmm. It is delicious. But you've worn so many hats, Jenna, like magazine editor, writer, recipe developer, author. We want to get a sense, how do you think those roles inform each other?
I think there's so much crossover. I had one of my food epiphanies in my mid-20s. I really came to food and cooking, I think, later than a lot of people. In my 20s, I was in the TV business. I lived in New York and I was working at a documentary production company, developing shows and trying to sell them to Animal Planet and Discovery Channel.
Oh, cool.
It wasn't cool, actually. I know it sounds cool, but it was actually incredibly hard and I kind of needed to get out of it. So I fell in love with food. I went to culinary school. By the time I graduated, though, I had a 1-year-old. I was a full grown up. I just couldn't go work at a restaurant for $10 an hour or whatever the minimum wage was then. And I'd always been a writer. And so I knew that I wanted to kind of be in the food media world. But it was hard, it's hard to break into that. And so I launched a little personal chef business. I was a personal chef for many years. And then, as happens, the people you meet, the people you know, one thing leads to another. And someone I had met in the TV world knew I went to culinary school, recommended me to someone else to develop some recipes for some website that no longer exists. So I did that. And then that kind of led to, a few years later, being the food editor at Parents Magazine. So then that kind of led me to the cookbooks. And then, I feel like this food business is always... Everyone does many things, right? You have to do many things. And one of the things that I love about my jobs in my life is that I'm still doing many things. And in my main job as the food director at Real Simple, I do many things. So basically, I just like to be doing a lot of things all the time.
That's really interesting. When you were a private chef, were you also writing on the side?
So yes, I was. So I was the kind of chef that would go in and meal prep for you on Mondays so you'd have enough food for the week. I was never interested in doing dinner parties. That's too much pressure for me. I wanted to go in when you weren't home, listen to my podcast, and just cook slowly in your kitchen and then leave everything in the fridge for you. So that was the period when I was writing. I started a blog that really didn't do anything, but it kept me writing. So I was doing these recipes for iVillage. I don't know if anyone remembers that.
Sure.
iVillage.
Yeah.
And then that editor who was at iVillage, so this is how I eventually got to Parents, she became the food editor at Parents and then asked me to be doing recipe development for them. And then when she left Parents, they're like, hey, do you want to come be the food editor?
Nice.
Wow.
But yeah, so I have always been the type of person that is totally okay, working in the evenings. I work during the day and I work at night.
Yeah. And that's still true, it seems.
Oh, yes. And the mornings. Yeah. 6:30 in the morning. I guess I've always been ambitious and I really like what I'm doing. So that's a good recipe for working hard.
Totally.
When you came into Real Simple in 2019, what was the magazine like? And it's kind of hard to sometimes go into an established brand as a new food editor. What was that like?
It was really interesting because the editor-in-chief at Real Simple had actually been my editor-in-chief at Parents. These corporate bloodlettings. She became the editor-in-chief at Real Simple. And a few months later, the food director at the time, Dawn Perry, I heard, through the grapevine that she had just turned in her resignation. I was like, oh, this is my job. I need to get that job. And so I, went to Liz and did the whole thing, of course, the edit test and everything. I really loved Real Simple's food coverage, but I also had real ideas about how to evolve it. I think that one of the things that is a constant struggle at this brand, and I still are challenged, and that I still am grappling with to this day, is how to balance the promise of simplicity and ease with new and exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not easy at all. And so I think that was something that I wanted to do going in, though it had maybe kind of veered a little more towards the new and exciting. And some of the simplicity had gone by the wayside. So that was my big goal. And just to make it a little more, I think, accessible and approachable. I feel like, we've been successful with that. And Liz who the editor-in-chief is, no longer there. I have another great editor-in-chief, Lauren, and they've both been so supportive. Our readers really love the food. It's actually, we do a lot of research and it is the number one thing that people come to the print magazine for, is our food coverage. So that makes me feel really good.
When you were saying it was too much veering toward exciting, was there like a lot of reader feedback about that?
Yeah. I mean, like, oh, I can't really find all these ingredients, or, this is just a little too out there. I mean, delicious stuff, and not all of it, of course, but it was just a matter, I think, of a gentle recalibrating. And like I said, it is something that I still have to do regularly.
Right.
Yeah.
When did you write your first cookbook?
So my first cookbook came out in 2015. So I was then the food editor at Parents Magazine. And I had met this literary and cookbook agent in my TV world, Sharon Bowers, who I've heard referenced many times on your Substack, I think with Kathy's book.
The Italian Summer Kitchen. Yes, yes.
Right, exactly. So I had met Sharon back when I was in the TV business. We had lunch and she's like, I think now's the time for you to write a book because you have this platform. Even though I didn't have, and I've never had like a big social media following, but I think that the food editor at Parents felt like it had enough gravitas to be able to successfully pitch books in that genre. So we actually went out with a Smoothies for Family book, which sold, but then the publisher also wanted a baby food book.
Oh.
So it was a 2-book deal. We drank so many smoothies. We did not eat all the baby food, but...
And by now your child is not a baby either.
Yes, right. That's right. But you know what? This is also sort of strange, but one of the things that really got me into cooking was having a baby. Like, I actually was one of those people that was like, I really just want to make the food. And that's also then how I got into teaching like culinary classes and personal chefing. I worked with moms in Manhattan. I taught nannies classes,
Wow.
And it wasn't just baby food. It was like family food,
Right.
Yeah.
So the smoothie book did not do well, but the baby food book did really well. And then I ended up writing 2 more baby food books. And one of them has sold well over 100,000 copies.
Wow.
And I actually
That's amazing.
have made money on.
Congrats. That's the baby-led feeding.
Baby-led
book,
feeding.
right?
Yeah, we actually did a revised version of that for its 5-year anniversary.
That's amazing.
I'm sure that just hit the zeitgeist at the right time. And then you have search on your side and
Yeah. One of the few times in my life that has all worked out. Yeah. That kismet. Yes, exactly. It was great timing. I still hear from people. I still meet people who are buying the book and using it. And even though I'm so far beyond the baby stage in my life, it really is very gratifying.
I love what you're saying, too, just because, like Sharon said, you have a platform. You were not necessarily thinking of yourself as someone with a platform, but by having that Parents Magazine background, it does feel like a platform for that specific book. And it really does help kind of, if I'm an acquiring editor, I see Parents Magazine, oh, well, she knows who she's talking to. She knows how to reach her audience. She knows what her audience wants. So it's not necessarily about, having a TikTok following. Well, of course, back then there was no TikTok, but even so, I feel like that still has gravitas even today. Like if someone was selling a niche book about a very specific topic, you want to make sure that person has expertise in that field.
Absolutely. And I think, we would never have guaranteed, I never could have guaranteed and we will publicize this in Parents Magazine. But of course we did.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that a publisher hopes for that as well.
Good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. Well, I can't wait to get into that part of our conversation today about promotions and what you're seeing coming into your literal mailbox. But just to go back to wearing the many hats. So you're publishing books, so you know about how books work, but you also know the inner workings of magazines. And I just was wondering, what are you feeling right now in the state of media? Because magazines are so different than they were when you got started in them. What is happening with magazines that maybe would be of interest, especially to people who are trying to promote their cookbooks?
Well, I think that magazines are still very powerful, many of them. I think that for example, Real Simple, I'm sure Bonap is like this too. Food and Wine, I think Food and Wine, Kristen, is doing an amazing job. The magazine is beautiful, and they all have a very loyal audience, all 3 of these that care about food and cooking. So I think to not try to get your book into this is, not smart. You should try. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there are fewer issues. We're doing 6 issues a year. So there is not as much in print opportunity for cookbook promotion. But I feel one of the things that I've been really excited about in food media is seeing the rebirth of magazines like Savour. I'm so into that magazine. I mean, I think they publish twice a year.
Something like that, yeah.
And I think it costs $25 or $30 when you buy it at the newsstand, but it is gorgeous, and it's thick and beautiful paper. It's something that you can spend a lot of time with. Cherry Bomb magazine, I feel like, is like this too. And especially Savour, they also have the really robust digital operation to go with it. So I think that it's really that kind of hand in hand of the print and the digital that, these like smart brands are doing so well.
Yeah. Making them more collectible, more like covetable.
Yeah. Premium, right?
Premium.
Elevated.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that word, premium.
Yeah. I was wondering, for a while you were maintaining a family food focused Instagram on top of your personal Instagram, but maybe not so much lately.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It even changed its name. Like, I really went hard on it for about a year. Like, I started it a long time ago, and then I went hard on it for about a year. I hired someone to help me.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're like,
it didn't really move the needle.
Oh,
so
interesting. Really interesting.
And, and then I was like, all right, I'll just do this a little bit on my own. And then I think about, I don't know, a year or a little more ago, I was like, you know what? I need to really focus on what excites me. Mm-hmm. And while I'm very, again, happy that people are finding these books and still happy about it, it's not something that I want to really spend my time actively promoting. I'd rather start a Substack about cookbooks or work on other writing projects. So that was a kind of conscious decision. And it was hard. I am not someone that wants to, oh my gosh, I still have my personal chef company. I still run that. I still consult for the TV production company I worked at 20 years ago.
Oh my God.
Like, I don't leave things behind, but I left this Instagram account behind. So
that's a really good lesson, though, because I was wondering if, starting the Substack was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm moving away a little bit from this. I do family food in my day job, clearly in your private chef company that you still run, but putting out something else new. And I think that's a really good lesson for people.
Yeah. It's like that, instead of like thinking of a sunk cost fallacy, it's like, okay, it had a good run. You want to spend your energy doing something else that's like energizing you.
Absolutely. I love the idea of like new adventures and new things. And again, like I said, I hold on tightly to things and it just keep adding. But I felt comfortable enough to, exactly as you said, Kate, just like move on to the thing that felt most me now.
Tell us about just the inspiration. Why did you start your Substack?
So I had a newsletter for a long time, like many authors, on MailChimp or something. It was very unsatisfying. I wasn't very good at being regular with it. And I didn't like that there was no feedback, right? Oh. Like, you send this email out into the ether and you can see how many people open it, but there's no likes, there's no comments. Like, I wanted to have a conversation with people. And I feel like those kind of traditional emails, that wasn't happening. I had been working with a friend, or that's maybe too strong. A friend has a Substack about like living small and sustainably. I'm kind of like her unofficial editor in a way. I mean, not completely, but I read many of the posts before she posts them. I've been kind of involved with her Substack, and I was like, all right, I want to do this. I really feel like Substack's a good platform for me. But it took me a little bit to decide what I really wanted to spend my energy on. And I knew it had to be something that I really cared about and would just be comfortable and delighted to talk about for a long time to come. And I was like, what is it? Is it this, that? And I was like, oh, obviously it's cookbooks. Like, I just love them so much and spend so much time thinking about them, cooking out of them, looking at them. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to talk about cookbooks. So that's kind of how it all came together.
And it's called Cookbookery Collective, which is so fun. And I think speaks to that like social nature.
Well, and Cookbookery is what Julia Child called it in her memoir. I read her memoir, My Life in France, so many times. And there's this quote in there, and I have it somewhere on my Substack. Like, I'm not going to do her voice. Once I discovered Cookbookery, I realized there was nothing so fulfilling, and I wanted to do it the rest of my life, or something like that. Yeah, I just liked that tie-in. And yes, collective. I really wanted it to be a place where, a lot of cookbook enthusiasts could just like get together and chat about the books we like. So I feel like it's becoming that. So it feels good.
Before you launched, how much time did you spend into planning? Because I'm thinking from a magazine background, you're thinking, oh, should I have an editorial calendar? Do I need my pillars? What went into the behind the scenes before you launched?
Well, I definitely wanted to make sure that I had at least ideas for, the first 2 months, say. And I thought, all right, so I was like, let me put down all the ideas I have. And I realized, oh, there are a lot of them. So that was good. That made me feel good. Like, I didn't want to, I actually have a friend now who's thinking of starting a Substack. And I was like, well, make sure that there's enough in your area that you choose that you feel like you could do it for a year or 2 years or more. And then I also deliberately chose for most of the posts like a Q&A format. So it's really kind of like an interview format, Cookbookery Collective. Yeah. There are a few exceptions, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I was just kind of tired of hearing myself talk. I wanted to really hear from other people. I felt like in my other newsletter, it was just me. And so I wanted to hear from other people. And I liked the idea, too, of making it a little bit standardized. Like, I love the by the book column in the New York Times Book Review and like the Proust questionnaire on the back page of Vanity Fair. So those two things were kind of my inspiration for sort of the templated questions that I send to everyone. Not everyone answers all of them, and there are always other questions, but that is kind of the basis for most of the posts.
Got it. That's smart. Did you do a lot of writing in advance?
I have a good editorial calendar in advance. Then it depends. Like, I really try to get a little bit ahead, but last week, it comes out every Thursday at 7 a.m. I have not missed a week, which I feel very proud of. I mean, since March, it's not that long.
Yeah, still.
And last Thursday at 6:30 in the morning, I was putting the finishing touches on one. But no, I try to, they're not super far in advance. I get Q&As in, which is great. So I have them. I might start building it, but I really kind of do them the week before they come out.
Got it.
And also, I like to include the New York Times bestsellers, and that comes out Wednesday night. So I always have to go and check that before I put it into the Thursday's newsletter.
That is a nice feature, because I was just looking at your one on Jacques Pepin. I mean, you're basically a news source for what's going on in the cookbook world. Before we started recording, we mentioned Paula Forbes' old newsletter and how valuable those roundups were. Now you've had your hand of doing a fall cookbook roundup, and it is amazing. How did you do it?
It's so funny because I think I did not really know what I was getting myself into when I started it. So I mentioned in this post that, I love people's curated lists of like, here are the 10 books I'm really excited about for the fall. But I think because Paula did it, and I really was just craving, I wanted to see all of them. Like, what are, I want the big picture. I only did it for September and October. I really should have just done 1 month at a time, to be honest, because there were so many.
Next time.
Yeah. But yes, so I wanted to do the completest approach. I wanted to see them all in one place. I honestly was not sure if anyone would care about this. I also wasn't sure. I was like, does someone already do this still? And I'm just doing this for nothing. But I was like, whatever. I'm just going to put it out there. It was a lot more than I thought to start. I ended up with about 80 or so when I sent it. And then I've since added on about 25 more since then that people have reached out to me saying, oh, you forgot this book. Oh, you need this book. So yeah, it was surprising to me how many. I've actually started, though, putting together the November and December list, and it is much more manageable. Phew.
One of the books on your fall list was from Gallery? And that's not even an imprint that I would look at for cookbooks. So I wouldn't even have thought of looking there to see if there was a potential cookbook to include in this list. So how did you actually do it?
Well, so this is where my job as food director at Real Simple really dovetails so nicely with this Substack, because for Real Simple, I'm always looking at what cookbooks are coming out. I've always kept a spreadsheet of when I get a pitch from a publicist, I've always kept a spreadsheet of, oh, here are books I might be interested in. And then this year, I just started keeping a spreadsheet of all the books I was pitched. So that has been helpful actually for both roles. There have been a few things then for Real Simple. I'm like, oh, wait, this book, like I might not have paid attention to that, but I think that there's something from there that I could pull out for a digital story. So a lot of it was press releases. Also, I pay attention on Instagram. Like, it's not a perfect system, but I think I would say that press releases and publisher catalogs are the bulk of it. It's just being really diligent about paying attention to all of those emails, logging them. And then, I think what I'm going to do going forward, actually, though, is in my newsletter, put out, say, before it comes out, like, hey, I'm working on my next list. Is there anything I should know about?
Yeah.
Smart.
And then have people email me pre-list generation.
Yeah. When I started at Food and Wine as an intern, one of my early projects was actually reaching out to all of the publishers to get their catalogs, their cookbook catalogs. And I don't know that we reached out to like all the like tiniest publishers, but certainly the bigger ones and bigger ones for cookbooks. And we did that at least 2 or 3 times a year, I think. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I often did that for the editor focused on cookbooks.
Yeah, absolutely. And the gallery one is funny. I was surprised by that too. That's Angela from The Office. She and her husband have a cookbook. I guess they do. I guess they have a YouTube show or something where they cook. Anyway, I don't know, but they have a cookbook. So that makes a little more sense for gallery, I guess, more pop culture, more towards their kind of typical audience.
I always wonder if it's an imprint that doesn't do cookbooks often, if they can actually pull it off. And I don't mean that to sound snobby, but cookbooks are so intricate in how they're designed, how they're laid out, how the front matter talks to the head notes, talks to the ingredient list. And there's just so many physical components that have to be designed accurately. If it's a publisher coming to cookbooks for like the first time, do they have the network of book designers who are actually familiar with cookbook design? Those are the types of things I think of.
Yeah. And the recipe editors.
Yeah, and the recipe editors, copy editors. Yeah.
Exactly. And maybe that's a case study. Maybe I need to do a case study about that
Could you
book.
do a deep dive into that?
Yes, I think I could, yeah. And really find out, how did this come to be? Who edited it? I hope someone edited it.
Yeah, I know.
Did it feel like there were more books than ever this fall compared to other falls? Or, I don't know, Kate and I were trying to get a sense.
Yeah.
So I have not made this list before.
Right.
So I cannot actually say. However, I was gobsmacked by how many books there were.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's just 2 months, right? That's just 2 months of cookbooks. I really fervently hope that there is an audience for all of those books.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a big one, I hope that those books all, because people worked hard on those.
Yes.
Yes. So I really hope that they all find even if it's a more niche audience, I hope there's an audience for all of them.
One of the reasons that maybe this Substack is really, you found the right subject matter to talk about is that at Real Simple, you only can mention so many books in your coverage. And you probably had so many books that you love, but they just maybe didn't quite fit the Real Simple audience or what you needed to include in the magazine. Does this give you just more of an opportunity to kind of share the books that you love, but aren't going to make it necessarily into the coverage for the magazine?
Yes, 1000%. Yes, I think that was a huge motivator. I'm always trying to get more cookbooks and cookbook authors into both our print and digital coverage. I always imagine people are rolling their eyes at me like, really? Another cookbook? They don't do that to my face. But sometimes I consider myself a Trojan horse for cookbooks. I'm just trying to, I'm like, hey, look at me. Oh, here's another cookbook. So yes. And I actually feel great about, they're not always a big hey, here's this amazing book, you should buy it. But I'll do, tip stories or, we need a story about how to make the best cookies. And so I'm like, all right, well, Dan Pelosi's my guy, let me go to him and get, his great tips about having an oven thermometer or whatever. So I'm always trying to think of creative ways to get cookbooks and authors in to both the pages and our digital stories. And I do not feel bad about it because they are the experts.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I feel very good about the people that we choose to feature.
It helps being a cookbook author, I imagine, because you're when you're quoted in a magazine, it adds credibility. So even if it's not going to directly sell your book, maybe right away, there is this credibility building that happens.
Agreed. Yes. And it's shareable. You can share it.
Totally.
Right. In our day of, you have to be sharing.
Yeah.
Figuring out what you're going to say on social media that's not just buy my book is very important.
Totally. I was wondering, with that huge roundup at the very end, which I did make it to the very end, you did say you now have tons of opinions about marketing copy.
Can you share?
Yeah, well, I don't want to name names,
No,
I guess.
you don't have to name names.
Yeah.
Do's and don'ts. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I got the marketing copy from Bookshop. So that's where I found all the marketing copy, right? And I would just go into each book, and then I would take like the first 2 or 3 sentences from each of the books. And it was really interesting to me how some of the books, the ones that I thought did a better job with this, had a very clear like log line, like right there. Like if you click on the, you're like, oh, what's this book? Let me click on that and read more about it. Some of them you had to kind of wade through more material before you just got to that 1 or 2 beautiful, like sentences.
The nut graph.
Exactly.
Right.
But catchy and fun. And so I want all the books to have that, not just because I wanted to put them in my Substack, but I think that they all need that. I feel like, no surprise, probably because they have robust marketing teams. Clarkson Potter, 10 Speed do a great job with that. That they have really enticing copy. Some of the other ones, maybe they don't have as much big of a marketing team. It's a little more challenged.
That's a good tip, because I know for a lot of authors, they do run that copy by you, at least in my experience. So maybe take a peek at Clarkson Potter and 10 Speed and their marketing copy on places like Bookshop or Amazon.
Right. Well, even when you're pitching your book to an agent,
Oh, 100%.
have that marketing copy, have your log line. What is your book about? Can you say it in a sentence, maybe 2 sentences? If the author thinks of the best log line, it's going to help sell that book. The agent's going to use it. The editor's going to use it for the sales and marketing. And it's going to end up in the press release that Jenna's going to look at when she's doing her roundups. Like, it will have a long life. But it is hard to get that right. But if it starts with the author, you won't have to worry about, oh, I don't know if someone got my evocative story. It's like, well, no, your job is to get your evocative story and be able to explain that to other people. I know when I'm working as a co-author, that's one of the hardest things about the job. Like, I don't know, Kristen, if you feel that way, but like trying to synthesize what someone who has an amazing story really wants to say in one book, not in like an entire series of books. It's hard to get that right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a great tip for potential authors. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about writing a cookbook, right? You've got to really be mindful of all the stuff. I feel like you've spent so much time on this book. Yes, there are experts, the marketing experts, but, they're working on a lot of things. Like, you got to have that ownership of your book. And you're not always going to, I know you talk about this, you're not going to win all the battles, but, there are some things that, it's worth inserting yourself into.
Right. And sometimes, like, you might have an idea, like you're an author and you come up with this like great log line, but it just needs a little polish. It needs that little like marketing spin, but you at least provide them with the raw material. So you don't have to have like the most polished sentence in the world. But like if a marketing person can say, oh, I can spin that around and like say, this is actually, I'm trying to come up with like a good one. Like, what is like a good,
I'm like, oh, should I go to the Substack?
I know. I'm like looking over at my shelf. I'm like, well, like the Soju Party book that's coming out with Knopf. It's like how to drink and eat like a Korean.
Yeah.
I know what that book's about.
That's a subtitle, right?
Yeah. Oh, and subtitles I find are so interesting also. There is something that I think I didn't always pay that much attention to, but also putting together this post, I had to think, am I going to include subtitles here? Or is it? And I was like, oh, yeah, you have to. Because the subtitle says so much about the book, more often than the title, I think.
Yeah.
Some of the titles can veer towards the generic, and it's great to put a finer point on it. Really, I think can do a lot of work for the author.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When my co-authors and I did Lavash with Chronicle Books, I don't remember what our subtitle was, but it was not great. And then Sarah Billingsley's the one who came up with, the bread that launched 1,000 meals and other, blah, 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 blah from Armenia. Because you have to have like the subtitle has to have all that metadata that's going to help someone find it on the internet or something like that. But she came up with like the bread that launched 1,000 meals. We're like, of course, that's what it is.
Yes, that's so good. It's a team effort.
Yeah. So something else that you've done with your Substack is you did a deep dive into the Wishbone Kitchen, which is a book that I think it's because I'm not the demographic that the book is marketed to. I was just not really aware that the Wishbone Kitchen was becoming this like runaway hit until friends were like, hey, haven't you talked about Wishbone Kitchen on your podcast? You have a podcast about cookbooks, right? And I'm just like, and then you came out with this great post. So just tell us a little bit about the background of this book.
So I also feel like I'm not the target demographic for that book. So I kept seeing it on the bestseller list for week after, as I was doing my Substack every week, putting in the bestsellers. And I was like, oh, Wishbone Kitchen again, Wishbone Kitchen again. And I think it ended up on there for like 7 or 8 weeks, which is really... I think Smitten Kitchen's been on that long, probably like Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, but that's rare. You know, most books, honestly, are there for a week. If a cookbook makes the list, it's usually there for a week, maybe 2.
Which is a huge accomplishment.
Huge, amazing. And a lot of that, right, if they're there for a week, it's because they had great pre-sales, usually. So fantastic. So that was there for many weeks. And then I also always feel like there is this conversation in the cookbook world about influencer cookbooks. I feel like whenever I'm with professional cookbook people, that conversation comes up a lot. And it is often a kind of lamenting of influencer cookbooks and how there are so many of them and, oh, they don't even write their own books. And so I originally actually started writing a post about that, about influencer cookbooks. And I think that at first, my take was a little more along those lines. Like, I was someone who was in the kitchen for, you know, months and months cooking and writing. I did it all. And then I was like, you know what? This is boring. And, people have had this conversation, and I don't want to be that person. And so then I really started thinking, well, what about this one book? I didn't even have it. I, got a copy of it, and I started cooking from it. So I made like 8 or 9 recipes from it, which is more than, frankly, I make for most cookbooks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I, listened to a couple of interviews with Meredith Hayden, who wrote it, and took a deep dive into her Instagram. And I really just wanted to understand, because not every influencer book does this well. I mean, obviously, but right? Some don't do well at all. Right. Like some barely make a blip. So I was really just trying to understand what was it about her. And I'm so glad I went through the exercise. I, have a lot of respect for her and for other creators. I tried to be a creator for like a year in the baby food world. And I was like, oh, that is just, it was very hard. It is a lot of work. And she went to culinary school. I think that made her also a little more my type of creator. Like she was a personal chef. Like she wasn't someone that, just kind of thought about like, oh, I want to be famous, so let me start cooking on the internet. Like, she really cares about food. The subtitle, though, of that book, I think, is really what kind of locked things into place for me when I was thinking about why is this book so popular and looking at the photos. I don't remember exactly what it is.
Seasonal recipes for everyday luxury and elevated entertaining.
Thank you. That luxury and elevated, I was like, oh. Because if you look at the book, she has got so many recipes in there for lobster and like crab and, clam bakes. And it does have kind of a beachy vibe, the book. But her audience, I'm pretty sure, is primarily women in their 20s without a lot of cooking experience, which she has said. So I'm like, are they really making lobster? Like, it was just an interesting... Like, is that what I would put in a book for beginning cooks? No. But then I realized, but that's not the point.
Right.
The point of this book, well, yes, hopefully you can make some of these recipes. It was really about the lifestyle and this kind of, I think I used the phrase, like a sheen of wealth. It's so aspirational. Yeah. And there are many books like this, but this one, I don't know, it really just hit all the right marks. I give a lot of credit to the photographers, the design team, the food stylists, the art direction for it. So I think it really pulled it off. And Meredith's audience also, they really feel like they know her. She said this somewhere, they know what jeans I wear. They know about my mental health struggles. Like she's already given them so much about her. They feel like it's like a parasocial relationship.
Absolutely.
Right? Like I feel, they feel like they know her. She probably knows me. So it's, to me, that's what that book was about, was her as a personality and also this idea of, oh, don't we all want to like summer in the Hamptons and have gorgeous like lobster and fruits and vegetables? I mean, so to me, it was really selling that kind of aspirational lifestyle that I think maybe these days, especially, people want. Like things are expensive. That type of lifestyle seems ubiquitous on social media, and yet it also seems very unattainable in real life.
Yeah.
It is. It's really interesting you're pointing this out about sort of like the luxuryification of for younger people. I wonder if that's translating then to other places, not just consumer products, but also lifestyle. And I don't know, you look at TV shows and they're constantly featuring luxury lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right.
And does that seem relaxing compared to our normal hustling
it might
world?
I'm thinking about just in different age groups too. I mean, the Ellen Hildebrand sort of series of in Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, and there's Always on the Beach. She has the Ellen Babes or whatever they're called, the women who will they come to Nantucket in the off season, and she does a 3-day tour, and she's a successful novelist, sure, but she has this other much larger platform that's this parasocial relationship with her audience. And I feel like those two could get together and pretty much sell out all of the Hamptons with a novel and a lobster bake fest or something, clear it out. It'll be a lot of blonde.
Or Nantucket. Apparently Meredith Hayden grew up going to Nantucket in the summers.
See?
So you know what? I think, Kate, you just had a great business idea for them both.
I'll take a cut. Yeah, that is interesting. And also just thinking about the popularity of what is it, the 1982, was it 1982 when Martha Stewart came out with Martha Stewart Entertaining? And when you look at that now, this feels like the 2025 version of that book because of those lush tables with all the stuff. I mean, you're plucking the grouse in your things in that book. But this is maybe not plucking the grouse, but you're still cooking the lobster. When 2025, that's a lot.
Speaking of that book, I just requested a copy of that, the reissue of Martha's book. I'm so excited to see that.
Oh, yeah. So good. So you've seen all these books. You've seen all these books that are coming out. What trends are you seeing that you're really excited about? Or on the alternative, are there books where you're another one of XYZ?
Well, look, there are so many baking books coming out this fall. But I have to say, I'm excited for all of them.
Yeah.
I really love baking books, especially when it's from people like Dory Greenspan and Helen Go. I just think there are some incredible and thoughtful baking cookbooks coming out. Helen's book, it's called Baking and the Meaning of Life, which is possibly my favorite cookbook title of the fall. I mean, that's so good. She's also a psychologist. And so a lot of the book actually is about finding community and kind of the mental health benefits of baking. I mean, it's really interesting. So a lot of baking books, but I'm not mad about it. I think I was actually, I think Sally Eckes pointed this out after my post, that there are some celebrity cookbooks, but not so many, which I think, is different for many falls. We've got some real heavy hitter books coming out this fall. That Sean Sherman's book that you worked on, Kristen, and Dory's book, and
Michael Twitty's big book about the American South.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
6 seasons of pasta is coming out that I'm already cooking out of because it's so amazing.
Samin Nosrat.
Yes, right, exactly. So I think there are people with real skill and gravitas, and that's great. One of the things that I've been noticing just in general, over the past year, is books are getting prettier and prettier. I just think that people are really going all out with the design and just making them feel more like an experience. There's some books oh, yes, it's the photo and then it's the recipe, and that's great, but then there's some, the first book I actually covered on my Substack was Hot Date by Rawan Al-Khatib. That is a chronicle book. And wow, it is you are just diving into this whole other world. They're beautiful photographs. She also illustrated it. So it's about dates, the history of dates. And not I'm going on a hot date,
right?
But the fruit. And she included poetry, ancient poetry that mentions dates. There's an ancient recipe about how to cook a flamingo that includes dates. It's just, so more and more of these books are becoming, and Chesnock is a book that's, just come out.
You had a great post on that book.
Yeah, I love that book. So I'm really into these books that feel like they are more of an experience. And I think that there are more and more of those, which makes sense because you can get a recipe from the internet, but it is hard to get a beautiful visual experience from the internet, plus great recipes.
Yeah. That Chestnut book, it just has beautiful photos and just the illustrations on the cover. And when in your Substack, you asked Paulina about the cover and the cover design, and she had such a great story. So we'll link to that in our show notes.
And I think Hardy Grant, that's a Hardy Grant book, I feel like they are doing an amazing job with their books.
Agree.
Big props to Hardy Grant. Yay.
Yeah. Beautiful books. Beautiful books are out there. Anything you see that's going to be coming out next year? Like if I'm sort of aspiring cookbook author and I'm trying to like find my niche and hone in, like, wait, you have any words of wisdom for someone like me?
Oh boy.
I know. I'm trying to think of what I would say to that person.
I would say maybe don't write a protein cookbook because there's so many protein books coming out this fall and in the spring. I've actually seen that there are more coming out in the spring. So maybe dial back the protein a little bit.
Fiber.
Yes, we need more fiber for eating all that protein.
If you can make fiber sexy.
Fiber is so sexy.
Or maybe it's got to be the high protein and high fiber book.
Right,
yeah,
the flip side.
Like the marriage of that, yes.
High protein, yes.
There's a free idea for someone. I'm really interested to see if we will be seeing more single subject books. I think that's something that they've always existed, but I've seen more and more really good ones kind of come up to the surface, like Sesame and Galette are two that come to mind right off the bat. I'm hoping that there will be more of those. I'm hoping that those have done well enough that that's something that publishers will take more of a chance on. You know, I feel like there's also lately been a lot of like the plant-based Mexican, plant-based this, plant-based that. So I guess this is something where I'm saying that probably won't be a trend because like maybe we've kind of gone through all of those. So these are all negative ones. Sorry. These aren't like what I think we will be seeing, but more like what we have seen.
Right.
A lot of the ishes. I feel like every type of cuisine has seen its ish now.
Right. Because Priya's book was so good and such like a good best-selling book too that now it's like
amazing.
Okay, yeah, she spawned a whole ish subgenre.
Or even if they're not called ish, but they are ish.
Yes.
So
Yeah. I like that idea of the single subject. That makes a lot of sense to me because people can get a curated collection of single subject recipes in a book. And maybe those books are smaller and the price point is a little bit more attractive.
I was thinking that too, because just the trend of like costs for publishers going up, which is driving up the prices of books, a nice way to still have maybe a $20 to $25. I'm guessing that's what it is. Maybe it has to go up to $30, but it's to have a more curated collection of recipes. So single subject works well.
You know, it's interesting. I thought about, do I want to include prices in this roundup that I was doing? I ended up not because it was just another layer of work.
So much work, yes.
And I do see part of my Cookbookery collective mission is to encourage people to buy cookbooks. Like I actually want the cookbook, industry to thrive because I love it so much. That was another reason I decided not to put the prices there. But it is amazing to me how most cookbooks now are $40 or more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the entree, right?
I know. And it's tough because with cookbooks, you can't say, oh, but then we'll have the paperback that will come out the following year. It's like, for a novel, I can say, oh, that's out, but I'll wait till next year when the paperback's out. That doesn't happen in cookbooks. The books need to be durable to be cooked from. So it is a tricky thing. I wonder what's going to happen with that. I hope people continue to keep buying cookbooks. And, if maybe that means to the Wishbone Kitchen sort of idea, it's like you're selling an experience. So buying the book, you're going to an event where she's speaking. So maybe if you're not like a huge influencer, it's just you can still make events around your book and the book is included in a ticket price and it becomes an event, an excuse to be out hanging out with friends. And maybe that's where the cookbook has like an edge over other kinds of books that are also facing price pressures.
I think that is such a great point. I mean, I feel like this is probably something that you all have noticed too, but I think events are where it's at in all the ways. Like I look at magazines and other media brands, it's all about events. We had recently The Real Simple Home, which is like our big tentpole of the year. And that goes into print, it goes digitally, but we also do big events. And so where people come and go to the house and take tours. And Cherry Bomb is another media brand I look at a lot, and they are really leaning into events. I think people, especially post-COVID, want to be out and about. And this is how a lot of brands are making their money. Aspen Food and Wine, now they're in Charleston. Yeah. So I think events, small or big, are a real strategy for media brands. And I think that they're a real high point for a lot of consumers. They get to go meet their tribe, right? Meet their people.
Right.
At, these people love cookbooks. So I think that is a real positive, actually. Let's get off, as we're on our screens now, let's get off our screens and
meet in person.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other advice, I guess, especially maybe to a writer, let's say? Are you taking unsolicited pitches at this point, or is...
Sadly, no. I know. So I think, so the biggest piece of advice is the advice that everyone gives, which is read the magazine, like know the brand, like it is still amazing to me how many pitches I get where I'm like, this person has never, ever looked at this. Like
we get them too.
Yeah, I'm sure. So at Real Simple specifically, in print, I work with the occasional freelancer, but it is not very regular. We do pretty much everything in-house, and that includes our recipe development. We work with the food studios down in Birmingham, the People Inc. There is a team of amazing recipe developers there that do most of the recipe development. So, in terms of writing and stuff, for our brand, that is not something we really work with that many freelancers on. However, when it comes to cookbooks, I love getting those pitches because, as we were, mentioning before, I will occasionally do a recipe excerpt in print. Our November issue, I've excerpted recipes from 3 baking books coming out this fall, David Leibovitz and Dory Greenspan and Gazina Bullock Prado. So that doesn't happen often, but love to be able to do that. Digitally, actually, we're doing more digitally. I'm like writing more and more stories, and I often use cookbooks as my inspiration for those. I just wrote a story recently about a really, someone who's baked a lot, but still a really cool tip from Sally's Baking 101 about how to shape chocolate chip cookies. I was like, oh, this is a great tip. So I wrote a whole story about it, included the book cover and the buy link. So
you were talking about events. But I think part of that is the magic of relationship building. Yes. I mean, it seems like so much of your career has come about because of building relationships. So in the end, a lot of times that's where the magic happens.
Right. That is 1000% true. And, it's also like for someone like me who's getting so many inputs and pitches and, seeing things on Instagram and on Substack, that, just reminding me that you're there also is great. Like, oh, hey, just want to check in. Or, oh, my book's coming out in a year. Like, I want to know far in advance. Like, tell me as far in advance as possible because we work really far ahead in magazines. So if I can, I'm working on my 2026 edit calendar now for next December. Right? Yeah. It's not set in stone, but if I have an idea there's this amazing book coming out in December 2026, then I can have that in my brain and be pitching it.
Right. And you have something that you're kind of heading toward.
Yes.
Do you have any more ideas for cookbooks? You don't have to say the idea, but do you want to write another one?
I don't know.
You don't have spare time. I know you don't have spare time.
Well, I also feel because I have thought about this. My last book came out in 2021. It was Bare Minimum Dinners, and I loved working on that book. It was very practical. It's not a book I would cover in Cookbookery Collective. It's a great book, but it's, it's very weeknighty practical book. I kind of feel like, does the world need another cookbook from me? I don't know. I'm really excited to talk about other people's books. I feel like if there was the opportunity to collaborate with someone that I was just so interested in learning from, or a brand that I loved, that, could move the needle. But I kind of, I've got a couple other little projects I'm working on.
Not surprised.
Yeah. In the book space, but not necessarily cookbooks.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Understand completely.
Yeah. There's so many great books out there, and I'm excited to dive into those and celebrate those.
I love that. I know the feeling.
Yeah, I understand that too. Well, thank you so much, Jenna. This was such a fun conversation. Love talking to you about your career, but Cookbookery Collective as well.
Oh my gosh, so fun.
Thank you. This has been such a pleasure. I listen to the show all the time, and so it's really great to be here with you.
Thank you for listening to Everything Cookbooks. For more about each episode, subscribe to our newsletter at everythingcookbooks.substack.com. Here are some other ways to support the show. Go to everythingcookbooks.com and check out our totes, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and other merch, or buy us a round of coffee. You can also leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Thanks as always to our editor, Abby Circatella. Until next time, keep on writing, reading, and cooking.